It's Diana at the intersection of food and literature, here to talk about what sweet potatoes or yams bring to the retelling of the night before Christmas, the Cajun Night before Christmas. So last week I made sweet potato casserole. I did not bake it. I'll bake it later. And this week I'm looking at what do yams / sweet potatoes bring to this story. I mentioned that I would probably talk about place, and I am going to talk about place. First, I said that very loudly. First, I'm going to talk about sweet potatoes themselves. I looked up what is the difference between yams and sweet potatoes, and I'm going to include a chart. It was very helpful from an article in Southern Living. The thing that, so in the chart shows you all the differences, and the thing that to me was very interesting was that the article says that the USDA allowed Louisiana to call its sweet potatoes yams. But it's really a Puerto Rican variety of sweet potatoes, but they called them yams. Louisiana wanted to distinguish its sweet potatoes from other states, and that's how they did it. Very interesting because it's Louisiana. Very interesting because that's part of what the mix-up is. And looking at the chart, a sweet potato and a yam are very different. I've probably, the article did say that they're more available now, but a yam is not a plant indigenous to the Americas, whereas a sweet potato is. But I'm going to say I've never had a yam. The other thing, and I've had yams, but this was the other thing, and this is like lagniappe because it has nothing to do with the story, that ube are true yams. Now my mother-in-law is Filipino, and I have had ube. Other thing that was interesting to me is I thought ube and taro were interchangeable. This has nothing to do with the story, because I thought taro was the way ube is said in Hawaii. They're different things. So not only are sweet potatoes and yams different, ube and taro are different. Details or other places. Okay, so that happened. The Louisiana thing with the sweet potatoes, calling them yams, that happened in the 1930s. This book, The Cajun Night Before Christmas, was written in the 70s. So already this had happened, and there might be confusion about, I grew up my whole life confused, thinking they were interchangeable, the words, with sweet potatoes and yams. So that there's the thing. Now, what I made was sweet potato casserole. What the woman in the story, or in the poem story, baked was probably a sweet potato, but we're calling it a yam. So before I talk, get my thoughts straight, why say yam? Well, just answered one thing, that Louisiana distinguished its produce by saying, hey, can we call this a yam? And the government said, okay, you can call it a yam. So people called it yams. Another thing, so did the author know? I don't know. Yam works with the rhyme. That's not nothing. That is absolutely something. Sweet potato does not rhyme with ham. So in the story, it says, I'm getting to it. Den mama in the fireplace, done roast up the ham, stir up the gumbo, and make bake the yam. When James Rice decided to retell this story, there were some things that I am guessing, I don't know what the thought process was, but if I'm going to remake a story, I have constraints. the constraint here is, or one of them, it's a poem. So now I have the rhythm, the rhyme, the format that has to be kept up. So yams go with ham. Sweet potato is much harder. Not first off, and like I've never baked a ham, a sweet potato, and a gumbo at the same time. Hams and sweet potatoes, yes, like for a holiday meal. Like I mentioned, our Thanksgivings were very large. We would have more than one meat. So there would be turkey and ham, and sometimes turkey, ham, and roast. So that's not weird. But a gumbo at the same time, not that it's like unheard of, it's just not to me what's normal, like every day. Anyway, so I'm thinking this makes sense, retelling the story with the rhyme, with the rhythm to say yam. So let's just talk about the technicality of the whole thing. Yams work with the rhyme. From reading the article, I found out that there is legitimate reason to be confused in Louisiana about what's the difference between a yam and a sweet potato. Because basically Louisiana said, we're going to call our sweet potatoes yams. So those things. Two technical things that make sense and have part of the explanation of why there's a yam in this retelling. Now, that is partially talking about place. When I talk about Louisiana saying, hey, we're going to change the name, that is place. Another thing I imagine, and as the reader, if I'm going to take a classic and I'm going to say, how would this story / poem be different if I put it in this very particular setting? And now we're talking about place. Well, what defines a place? The landscape. So we have a swamp, we have the trees, we have a skiff. The skiff. I'm trying to think if I ever heard anything called a skiff. But okay, a skiff. And the language, we have the way the guy talks differently. All the vernacular is there. What about really, if you're talking about Cajun culture, you're going to talk about food. You're going to talk about music. It's very hard to have music here. So the names are changed. The bayou, the swamp, the creatures, the alligators instead of reindeer. No snow. The chimney is actually there functioning not for warmth, but to cook. So, because really in many places in Louisiana it doesn't get that cold. Not that it never did. Okay. So having a specific way of saying things, like having gumbo, having a yam instead of a sweet potato, this makes sense. So what do sweet potatoes do? What do yams do? It helps take a classic that is set in a very different landscape and put it into a very particular cultural landscape and reimagine it. And that's how. Talked about place. Man, that went fast. Okay, so that's the end of that. This is the last book I'm doing this year, this calendar year. I am going to, because I'm going to stick a lagniappe gumbo video up. And I'm also going to do a little holiday bonus sweetness with pumpkin roll. So those will be up. So I will see y'all next year. And with a new book, our new poem, a new something, a new bit of literature, and more great food. Y'all have happy holidays. I'm wishing you all the warmth of good food, good literature. See y'all later. Bye.